Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers of happiness, joy, and a centered approach to success in life. Seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation, and we're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Well, Melissa, you just had a parenting milestone.
Yes, I did.
Your baby got married.
My oldest and last baby got married.
So you got both kids married off.
Yep. Let me tell you, it's a weird feeling. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, well, from where I sit, still having teenage kids, it seems like a long way off, but I bet it's really probably not that long off.
You know, it's kind of like I think everything else with your kids is like you're in the age and stage that you're in, and any other stage seems very far away. But next thing you know, you're no longer in the old stage, and now you're in a new one. Yeah. And it really does feel like it shifts without you even noticing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that idea that our kids have these events in their lives, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the later ones, like you experience as like a kid getting married. But there's all these earlier ones, right? And they're kind of focused on the kids, and so they're like the kids' rites of passage.
Yeah.
But they really have an effect on you as a parent too.
Yeah.
So maybe they're like parent rite of passages instead of kids rite of passages.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think I love the phrase rites of passage. I love that phrase so much. And in our society, we don't really focus on rites of passage. I mean, we do, but not in the same way. We don't look at it, I think, as, deeply moving societal showcases of moving through life.
So what's like an example of that? Like in maybe a Latin culture, you've got quinceañera, right? Which is like when you're 15, it's like a huge thing.
Right. In the Jewish community, there's many, many rites of passage that are signifying moving into adulthood, moving into a maturity in your spiritual life. Like there's a number of them, and I think there's key points of them right there. I think a lot of them are spiritual rites of passage for human beings. I think it's societal, as you were saying, rites of passage. I do think there are just a number of rites of passage, and for the United States, we do have some, like we do celebrate a marriage. We would celebrate a graduation, from high school. However, you don't often see people celebrating a graduation from college, right? Which is an interesting marker. That's an interesting marker.
I would argue actually one more difficult and more like, it'd be better to celebrate a college graduation than a high school graduation because it's a lot more effort.
So I do think, like, as we just sort of experiment with this idea of rites of passage, we can look at our own lives and find many examples in which we've had them, in which we felt special, in which we felt called out, in which we felt was something unique that made us, reach this new pinnacle.
Yeah. So let's see. First, what are some of them? So, like when you're a kid, when you're little.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people will celebrate baptisms. Some don't, but honestly, I think most people still do in America. If we're just speaking about our country, you have confirmations. So again, also religious markers. You have leaving grade school and moving to middle school,
or like the first day of school,
or
the first day of your kid's school. That to me, like that is standing out on the at the end of the driveway, waiting for the bus to show up for the first time.
Okay, I still remember your daughter Abby. You had to get her on that bus, and then she wouldn't stay, and then she jumped down.
Put her on the bus, and then she was grabbing and clawing at me, and I had to like push her off and escape out of the door of the bus.
I don't remember if you used the word monkey or I did, but I always have that visual of her, all four limbs holding on for her dear life. Well, which brings up an interesting
kind of a rite of passage.
I mean, it is, and we're talking about our children's rites of passage, and yet as parents, we really have to come along with these kids in a way to celebrate these rites of passage, as opposed to really feeling sort of some devastation behind the scenes. You know, like when we dropped our son off to college, I remember this is when Facebook was way bigger and I was really into posting with it, right? And I posted a picture of Mitch and I hugging Mitchell and giving him what we call the Albers Oreo. The Albers Oreo is when both parents come in at a kid and both kiss them on either side of their face while we're hugging them. And we called it the Albers Oreo. And I specifically remember that day and saying, with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes, we dropped Mitchell off. And it felt so jarring. So like it's so interesting when you think about these kids growing up and going through all these different stages of their lives, how it is required or certainly requested that parents can come along in the same lighthearted, joyful manner. And I think we do, but there's also kind of this other side to it, right? And I think that's the case with a lot of rite of passages.
You're saying like the other side, like we're excited for the kids for their next phase,
right?
But we maybe like mourn what.
What was?
What was. Like they're not going to be that little kid anymore. They're off, they've launched or whatever.
I think too, in order for us to wholly recognize these changes with children and into adulthood I do think is recognizing that we as parents have a little less everything with them in each step. So, obviously a baptism, a child needs everything from the parent, everything, and will not survive without that. And then as you look at the various things that they go through in these various rites of passage, there's a little less and a little less needed from us until we reach this pinnacle in a child's life, which is getting married, and that's what we just did with our son. And it is this amazing feeling of connectedness and separation at the same time. And it's, on one hand, such a joyful, you're so proud. And on the other hand, you're completely devastated because you think, oh my God, they don't need us anymore. They're not going to call us first. We're not their person to call first anymore,
Yeah. I feel like some of that, well, we'll see, but some of that, like, young adults go through that phase where they really do completely separate from their parents. But then as you get older, like maybe where we're at, we kind of come back quite a bit to like, I still call my mom quite a bit.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I know our kids, well, I think that our kids go through phases, where they'll call either of us either a lot or one of us more than the other. And we haven't had these big gaps. Now, of course, there are gaps in families. So I'm only obviously speaking from my own experience, both in my personal life as a child, the way I was, and as an adult, moving throughout all of those various stages. But I do think that it's interesting because from a kid's perspective, when they're reaching all these, like we didn't name all of them, but we started to. We talked about childhood ones. We talked about first day of school, but there's also a lot even within the high school.
Oh yeah, like age. When I was like kind of thinking about what some of these times were, like getting your driver's license to me is like the quintessential American, like
bye Felicia.
Yeah, our oldest got his driver's license, and it's just like we saw taillights, and that's the last time we've seen him.
Exactly.
It's just
Exactly.
off. But that's such a great marker of like new independence,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And they drive off, and you don't know where they're going, and you can't control what they're doing, and
And you hope they're safe. And what are they doing outside of what they said they were going to do? Oh, there's so many things about getting a driver's license that are terrifying for a mother. I remember when I got my driver's license, my girlfriend and I had a stick shift car. That's what we had to use. It was her family car that they let her drive. She was terrified. So, of course, me with the boulder, I'll do anything. I said I would drive. I had no idea how to drive a stick shift.
you didn't even know how to drive it, and you hopped in and
No.
tried to drive it.
Yep. Not only did I try to drive it, I did drive it down Brooklyn Boulevard because I lived in, and Brooklyn Boulevard was a 4-lane, very busy road. And there we were, hopping like a jackrabbit all the way down the blocks with her screaming in the passenger seat and me wildly, hysterically laughing. But I can promise you my mom did not feel like that about me driving. She was not, hysterically laughing or having fun with that at all.
Yeah,
it was
like that
very
was
scary
not fun
for her.
or funny to her.
No, it was not funny.
There's a lot. Yeah, I think like those elementary years, right? It's just like okay, you go to school, then maybe you graduate 5th grade and go into or 6th grade, whatever it might be, to go into middle school.
Yeah.
That's kind of a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then going into high school, and then things kind of start to accelerate. There's a lot of these rites of passage as you get into your like later teenager years, right? A driver's license, first job, probably some sports related things, like you might have made a team, you might be the captain. Then you graduate high school, you get and then you got to figure out what your next phase is, because maybe you go to college, maybe you go get a job, maybe you take a year off. I mean, there's all sorts of decisions right at that point for young adults, and that one is pretty major to me. That graduate high school, for my kids, it was like a pretty major like directional decision that they needed to make, in their
pretty quickly. Like they
17,
had to figure
18
it out.
years old. And for some kids nowadays, it's like younger, like, oh, you're 15 or 16, you got to figure out where you're going to go to college. Like, that's quite the decision to make.
Right. And then I think too, or if they're going to go to college, I think too, we're talking sort of, I think about sort of two different things that are in the same lane. Because I think that when we're talking about rites of passage, I think societal rites of passage are much more rooted in past and in legacy, and in what the sort of the world or the greater society sees as a child's growing up. And I think that I was just reflecting as you were talking. I was like, that's so interesting, because when I think of a rite of passage, I think of things that everybody globally understands. Like a baptism. Everybody understands what that is, whether you participate or not. That is something that is, everyone understands. And then you talk about kids being maybe the first day of school, perhaps, yes. But graduating from high school is definitely something that all people understand. Now, not everyone experiences all of these rites of passage, and yet it is something that everyone understands. What I find interesting is this idea that just kind of came to me as you were talking, and that is we have added several things to a child's life that make them stand out as special.
How do you mean?
Well, because when you and I were in 5th grade and going to 6th grade, there was no 5th grade graduation.
Oh, yeah.
There was no such thing. It was like, stop focusing on yourself and get back to school. Okay, right?
Yeah.
And whether you participated in anything in sports or your parents had anything to do with what you were participating in, also not a thing. It wasn't a thing. And I think that as the world has become a little more wonky, we have added several things that are meant to give just as much fanfare as some of these legacy, really big things. And there is a disconnect in society about if that should happen or not. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. Like this idea that it shifted from a few really big events to many, many small events.
And
what
maybe
does
some
that
big
look
ones
like?
still, but what does that look like? I mean, we had, when our kids both finished kindergarten and then they were going into first grade, there was a huge celebration called their flying up ceremony.
I've never even heard of that term.
You haven't?
No.
Okay, so there's an example. Our entire school district turned on its ear whenever it was flying up ceremony day. And they would have high schoolers come in and line the walls.
Wow.
For these kindergartners. And the last day of school, they would put all these gym mats all along the hallway between the kindergarten rooms.
Yeah.
I think there were 6.
Yeah.
And, so it's a fairly small school. The kids graduated from Orono, which is in Minneapolis, and it's a western suburb, small, gridlocked around all the major big schools are around it. So they had 200 some kids in their school or whatever, 250 are in their graduating class. That's it. I had 600. But they would have these ceremonies where the kids would run on these mats and jump at the end, and everybody would clap. They would line the row and clap. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we didn't do anything like that when I finished kindergarten. It was get your pencils out of your desk and we'll see you in 2 months. You know?
Yeah, clean. That
Clean
Rites
your
of
stuff
Passage
out.
was clean up.
I know.
Get all your crap out of here. So let me ask you this. What does that Rite of Passage event, whether it's big or small, like the flying up day, what does that do for your kid? What does that do for your child?
Right.
How does that mold or shape them?
Right. That's such a good question. And does it?
Yeah, does it have an effect or does it not? That I could, I was trying to think. You said, did you have that in kindergarten or 5th grade?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, did I? You know what? It could be totally possible. And my mom loves to do this all the time. I'll say, of course I didn't. I don't remember that. And she's like, you did. You did. I made Rice Krispie bars, So the question is
Parker, the fabulous mom.
I think sometimes we might have these events, but they actually don't have the effect on the kids that we think that they do.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do have a big effect, and that could be very individual. I seem to have a very bad memory about some major things that we did when I was a kid.
Well, but again, are those really rites of passage, or are those just big deals that a little pocket of society made over something?
Maybe,
to celebrate kids, to celebrate something, to have a positive something for children to look forward to. Or to signify something for the kids to encourage them to continue on. Yeah. Maybe. I think a true rite of passage, though, is something that has gone on for decades and decades, maybe hundreds of years. And I think that those true passages are ones that the entire collective celebrate. For women in certain cultures, having their first menstrual cycle is a huge celebration because it is them coming into being an adult. And that is something that all of their environment look for and wait for decades because it signifies something very deep and very true to the culture. And I think that is the true mark of a rite of passage. But I think some of the things that you're talking about, it's interesting because I think there are a lot of people.
I will suggest that we do that for my 15-year-old daughter, and she'll absolutely I will never see her again.
Shriek. Yeah. Yes. You might be already late on that, JJ. Yeah. Anyway, but you know what though? Getting married, for example, coming back to our wonderful son. Getting married is a huge rite of passage. It is the culmination of all the things that you have done and been as a young person, until you've reached a level of maturity where you now are, like, it sends a message. It's like this time in your life sends a message that you are uncoupling from you. Both of you are uncoupling from your childhood families, and you are now beginning your own family. And that is a huge thing that all societies recognize as a major rite. But when you start talking about some of these other ones, I think we do try to put them in the same category as some of those more ancient binding experiences, which is an interesting topic in and of itself. That we're doing that, that we're working to create more and more opportunities for us to show sort of this binding relation or binding growth for kids. Do you think that way? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I was just thinking that even in my experience with my own kids, like age-wise, they might be at a spot, but maybe emotionally maturity-wise, they're not quite there, or they're earlier, they're late. Like everyone's kind of so unique on their timeline that it is funny. Like it's hard to put like you turned 16, so now these things happen. Because sometimes they don't time out quite right.
No. Well, look at arranged marriages. There are still young girls that are being in arranged marriages at 13, 14, 15 years old. So can you imagine that? It's like, oh, yep, you're an adult now because you're married.
I read a stat that actually like arranged marriages end up like often like statistically more successful than
do they really?
Choose your own adventure. Yeah.
Choose your own adventure. I've never heard that before. We've been making a lot of jokes about marriages and weddings, obviously, in our family right now because it's so prevalent. But I heard a comedian once say, "My wife and I have been married 20 years. It's the best 6 years of our lives, but not consecutively." Yeah.
So like some like when I kind of asked the question, I think we got like a little bit distracted, but like
maybe
the idea that some of these things like what remember some of your rites of passage, and to me I like very distinctly remember getting my driver's license. For me that was like a big event, like marker of independence for me. And it kind of changes your worldview. And I think one of the points of a variety of these events, what they're trying to do in one way is actually change the worldview of the kid, right? Like, here's your car keys. This is a new level of responsibility for you, right? Here's your diploma. Here's a new, like, now you are on a, like, adult life track, right? Like, even, and getting married, right? Now you are completely, now you are building a new thing, a new family, nuclear family. Right?
Yep.
And how those are changing your worldview, I think is really interesting.
How much of your worldview is influenced by your parents' worldview, and some of these experiences, I would say something more binding than a driver's license. Like, I mean, we can use marriage, we can use, I don't know, finishing school, or the first time, like if a child loses a parent and has to step into more of a parental role, like that would also be an example of a rite of passage that gets amplified and begins sooner. I think there's a number of those things. But when you think about how a young person looks at these experiences, these big, major changes, how much of their reaction is influenced by how the parent has raised them and how the parents' reactions are within the moment. To me, that's a really interesting thing to think about. These are the places where these are the places where we are really setting the tone for our children's adulthood without even really being cognizant of that. Because we're informing them how to be as an adult in these scenarios that they are not.
Yeah. Yep. I look at our kids' graduation parties, and the number one question when you go to a graduation party, the number one question you ask the student is, "Oh, are you going to college? What are you doing next? Are you getting?" They're asking all these probing questions about what you're doing next,
right?
And the kids, they have an answer, but to me, with my kids, it's like not a super solid answer, right? They're like,
not most
like
of
they
them
are
don't.
going to do stuff, right? Ethan's in flight school, Ellie's going to college, like they are doing that next step, but they're not super confident about their next step. Like they don't really even know. They're almost going. I felt like they're almost going through, like they're doing the thing that that people around them are expecting
Imposter
them
syndrome.
to do.
Yeah,
even though
I
they
agree.
don't maybe even want to do it, but they're just going to do it because that's the next thing. Because all these people are asking me the same question, so that must be the thing I must go do next.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it's almost like they're just parroting what they're told. It's like, well, I read this book that said that I'm going to flight school. So I haven't finished the book yet, so I don't know how it actually ends, but I've read the table of contents and the first chapter.
Well,
so I'm doing that.
Or like my parents went to college, so I go to college too. Like that's just what happens.
Yep.
Like I don't know anything else.
Yep.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Did you ever watch that Seinfeld episode where they were at a bar mitzvah and the kid at the bar mitzvah kisses Elaine, and he's like, and she goes, well, like, why did you do that? And he's like, I'm a man now. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
see,
the
that's
idea
what I'm talking
that
about.
event is like, hey, this symbolizes that you are now a man, and then the kid acts like in a completely different and inappropriate way, just because he had the event, right? Just because he went through that rite of passage and that ceremony. Now he thinks so. Obviously, as a pushed example, and that's why it's so funny.
It is. That's hilarious. But it is. But that is like exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It is like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, and I think too, like as a parent, it's just so important to think about, like for example, getting ready for the wedding. We were constantly asked, well, what are you doing for this? And what are you doing for that? And I was like, I would put my hands up and I'd be like, I'm not doing any of that because I already had my wedding. This is their wedding. And that is not a typical parent reaction. It just isn't. A lot of parents like want to jump in. They feel personally like, I didn't have this in my wedding, so I'm going to see this in our children's wedding, whether they want that or not. I have this expectation that we're going to have this many people and this kind of reception and this sort of thing, or there will be a reception. And I do think that the child's rite of passage coming into adulthood in that sort of environment and that sort of experience warrants a real celebration of that child.
Yeah.
All of these things warrant a real celebration of what that child has done, even in their limited experience and maturity. It's just being able to say, wow, this is so great for you.
Yeah.
And as parents, be fully invested in noticing that child rather than trying to control the outcome, trying to do something to make it look like you've done the right thing as a parent. Like, nope. This is about them.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's a really, really interesting. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. And I just feel like, oh, I'm so washed up now. My kids aren't going to need me anymore. Of course, I know this is not true. But
because there's one more really major rites of passage that may or may not happen. But
may or may not happen.
Just
yeah, exactly.
Hold out. The last one is
hold out and don't ask him. Yeah. Don't ask him about it. Don't even talk about it.
The last one to me is like, I don't know, the biggest lie. It's like the having kids thing. It's like everyone's like, you should have kids, but then when you have kids, you're like, what the hell was everyone talking about? This is terrible.
This is so hard.
Like all
this
the adults,
is so hard.
All the adults with kids are like, oh yeah, you should go do that. That'll be fun for you.
We did it.
Yeah.
We did it. You should. Oh, yeah. And I always say to my kids, listen, whether you have kids or not is your business. But if you do, I will be really good at being a grandma. That's what I say to them. If you do, I will be so good at it.
All right. Well, this is fun. This is fun to reflect on our own rites of passage and events in our lives and think about our kids and how we position all this stuff.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really fun watching them grow up.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well. Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them.
We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring.